and welcome to the Honest Property Podcast. We're your hosts, Rebecca and Ruth, and we have Ellie here today.
Ellie is an amazing HMO queen. She basically built up a huge portfolio, 3 million?
3 million,
in 2 years. And that's just wild. As well as being a mother. And she's an ex-head of lettings at a big letting agency in the Southwest. Was it nationwide?
No, Southwest, Southeast.
Yeah.
So all around the Southwest, London.
Yay.
That's exciting. So I actually found Ellie on Instagram, just randomly popped up because as a mother in property as well, it was nice to see someone else that was also representing that space.
Yeah, so you found her on Instagram, and then I was like, hang on a minute, my friend already knows her and we're meeting up next week. So it was just nice because it was like a small world and we all...
It's a small world. I think women in property is a small world anyway. And then mums, and then when we had friends in common, it was just like it was meant to be, ladies.
Yeah.
Meant to be.
Right.
So why did you get started in property? What's your story?
So it's we're talking like, well, I'd say 20 years, maybe even 25 years ago now. At school, I really wanted to be a builder. And when I saw the careers advisor and they were like, you're a girl. Girls aren't builders. And at the time I thought, oh God, how rude. But looking back now, that was probably great advice. I'd have been a shit builder, like I really would have. But I still loved property and still wanted to be in property. So when I left school, I went into recruitment. I saved and saved. I went and did an apprenticeship when I was 16, saved and saved, bought my first house when I was 18. It was a lot easier to do that then than it is now. And then I still wanted to be in property. So I took the traditional, almost sort of female route, I suppose, of going into lettings. And then it just grew and grew and grew from there. My real desire to want to be in property. So that's how I got into it. And when I was working in agency, I loved it. And I climbed the traditional career ladder, but I got further and further away from property. And I got more and more sort of people management, numbers, that sort of thing, rather than being in property. So that's kind of how I got into it.
That's interesting how you've like differentiated being in property, but then being in a business that
does property. Yeah, they're two very different things. And it's only now that I'm in property, as we say, full time, that I realise how far away I'd got from the property, the transactions that I really enjoyed.
How would you define being in property then?
I think dealing with properties on a day-to-day basis, it being my business is properties, is transactions, is tenants, is houses, is homes, whereas really then I was people management, strategy, business plans. There wasn't anything. I could have been in any business. It could have been, I don't know, it could have been cars, shoes, whatever. It was numbers, figures, people, an outcome. It really wasn't about the property. And I love the redevelopments, taking something that's hideous. We've spoken about the swirly carpets and that sort of thing, and making it something nice and then making it a home for people. I'd ended up quite far removed from that.
Do you feel like being in property now has really fed your creative side?
Yeah, I don't think anyone would necessarily describe me as having a creative side. I am pretty useless.
But you make houses look pretty now.
Yeah, exactly. No, and the whole, the want and desire to build houses, design houses, and things like that. Yes, this is what I've always wanted to do. Was my dream. And I shared with, I used to have a different circle of people around me, and I shared with someone very close to me that I wanted to go on and design houses and build houses. That's something that was like my dream. And they laughed at me and said, oh, what are you going to do? You're going to draw them with your crayons? And, I sort of laughed it off. Oh yeah, you're probably right. But that stopped me and held me back for a long, long, long time from doing what I'm doing now. But this has always been my dream. Always.
Oh, yay. Well done, Ellie. So
Yeah,
proud.
It's so important who you surround yourself with.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So my partner, Brett, he's an accountant. So I'm like, oh, buy properties, make them look good, do all of this. And he's like, whoa, slow down. Let's do some figures here. Let's do a business plan. Let's sort this out. But when I went to Brett, I was 7 months pregnant and said, oh, do you know what? I really want to do that. That is my dream and my desire and things like that. And Brett sort of said to me, okay, but if you really want to do that, why are you not doing that? I was like, well, I don't know. And he's like, okay, but if that's what you really want to do, let's do it now. Don't get me wrong, we had to do 55 different spreadsheets and make a business plan and make sure it was going to work, and how would we pay our bills, and make sure we had a plan. You know, I didn't just quit my job and go, let's build some houses. It doesn't work like that. But it, like you say, that who you surround yourself with makes a huge difference. From, you know, people in the past like laughing at what I want to do to Brett sort of saying, okay, let's make this happen then. Let's do this. I was like, oh, well, hold on, now it's actually becoming real. Do I really want to do this? Which of course I do, but you get a bit sort of like,
I just realised the door was open as well.
I'm so new to their sound. And then I was like, hang on a minute, we don't want budget noises in the background. But yeah, so your partner was a pivotal part of your encouragement and support to get you going.
Yeah. I think doing it completely on your own with no support and everything, I think is almost impossible, because it's very easy to let other people's views colour what you're doing or what you want to do.
Especially the closest person to you. If they're not supportive, then...
And a lot of the time, when they are not being supportive, a lot of the time is because it's their fear on you, instead of it actually being anything to do with you.
Yeah, I think you could be right. I think everybody has all different reasons for making the decisions that they do. But I think unless you have people who will support you, who buy into what you're trying to do, who understand what you're trying to do, it would be very difficult to get to where you want to.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
I think my partner he doesn't really understand, but just wildly supportive.
And sometimes
that's all you need. Sometimes, isn't it?
Yeah, just almost like and I'm not calling Brett a cheerleader, but someone who's going, yeah, go on. Do you know what I mean? I believe in you. I don't necessarily, and Brett does, because he runs a lot of our numbers and things. But even if they don't, just going, do you know what? I believe in you, and you're very set on this, and you seem to think it's going to work. So we've got a plan. As long as we stick to that, let's do it. It just makes such a difference.
You're a good team.
Yeah. I was gonna say, power couple.
Well, I don't know about that, but I'll take it.
So
how did you get into HMOs? Like, that's quite a specific niche.
Yeah. So when I was in in agency, I dealt with a lot of HMO landlords. So even back then, I used to look at them and think, oh, I'd love to do that. I'd like to have these big properties. But again, never thought I could do it, and never thought it was like something that just, anyone could do. And that's kind of was my fire in my belly to do it. And then I was on Instagram watching other people doing it, and I was thinking, I think I could do that, like, why can't I do that? Started looking at cash flowing assets and how to refinance things onto commercial mortgages, and I thought, this is like my space. We've done flips, I've done planning gains, so got land and taken those through planning for some big detached houses. But for the everyday run-of-the-mill, the HMOs, building our residual income, our ongoing annuity income, like that's just given us a grounding to start from. So yeah, I've always wanted to do it, but I think the money, it works well. It does work well. And we've been able to create a lot of rooms, and high quality rooms, to help people who can't afford a luxury house or a decent house or things like that. They get their own little space in a corner of a really nice house. And that's part of why we do and want to do what we want to do, because we want people to have nice homes, and some of the HMOs I used to think, oh my God, and we don't want to do that. We want to create nice houses and nice homes, even if it's renting a room, but nice communal areas and things like that. And yeah, there's a lot of drive behind that.
Yeah.
I've got a question, actually. Are you self-taught, or have you done a course, or what's your background in your education?
So most of it's self-taught from being in agency. And Brett used to work in agency. He's an accountant, so he used to work in agency as accountant as well. So we both knew quite a lot. So most of it is self-taught. I did do a course. I wouldn't recommend it, and that's nothing to do with the course, but that's because I think we had a lot of knowledge already. So we did the course, it was good, and it was nice to meet other people and things, but we realised after we left the course that actually the majority of that we knew anyway. And then I've just contacted people through Instagram. I've had a few phone calls with people and sort of said, do you think I'm on the right track, and things like that. So a lot of it's self-taught, but being in property for such a long time, you are around it. You do.
Yeah, you've just picked up.
Yeah,
you've learned on the job.
Yeah, and going on the course that we did, I think was good, because it made us realise how much we do know.
Like hindsight.
So like a confidence booster in yourself. Sort of thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
sometimes you've got to pay to go, Oh, actually, I do know a lot.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and there was a lot of people there who were starting from scratch. You know, what's a HMO, what's a buy to let, what's a how to raise finance, things like that. Whereas we already knew that. So you're right. It probably gave us the confidence. So I'm not knocking the course. I think just because at that point we've both been in it for 14 or 15 years, we already knew a lot.
Yeah. So if somebody was, say, like there was a young person out there and they were interested in property, would you recommend getting into learning on the job by working for an agency?
I don't think that can ever harm. You know, I don't think that will ever do you any harm, because you'll see people buying properties, people selling properties, people renting properties, people letting properties. You know, especially if you've got a mortgage advisor and things working in the business, in the agency. Yeah, I think it's a very good place to start. But as I say, I ended up more as a business person than a property person. So I probably, if you really wanted to go into it full time, I probably wouldn't stay in agency for as long as I did.
I guess it's a low risk way of being able to ask questions within the industry, isn't it? Without having to put so much money down.
Yeah,
but you're learning as much as you can from your network of people to then go, okay, now I'm ready to do it myself.
Yeah, I would always recommend as well just being really ballsy. So you know, when I decided, right, I'm going to make this move from agency and I want to do this full time, I contacted loads of people on LinkedIn, on Instagram, people that I'd been following and really admired, and just sort of said, you know, would you be happy to answer a few questions? Would you go for a coffee, or would you jump on a call or anything like that? And so many people sort of said, yeah, okay, let's do that, and were so helpful. And there's a couple of people I'm still in touch with today, and I genuinely believe they gave me just little bits of knowledge each that have really helped me to be successful. But that was just because I asked, you know. And Brett's a bit more reserved and a bit more like, oh, you can't just contact them out of the blue. What is the worst? The worst that's going to happen is they're going to ignore me. Yeah. That's the worst that's going to happen. Best, they say yes.
If you don't ask, you don't get.
Exactly. Yeah. And other than that, what they might say no.
They can just say no. Yeah. Exactly. And there's nothing lost.
No, and nobody has ever been rude. Some people have ignored me. You know, I understand people are busy, that sort of thing, but nobody has ever been rude.
It's like, don't take it personally.
No.
If they don't reply,
they're busy.
They're busy.
Yeah, exactly. You sometimes you have to put yourself out there, you know, and if you don't, you'll be me 10 years ago, just sitting on the sidelines watching them, being very successful, admiring them, but thinking I'd like to do that. But yeah, I'm not ballsy enough to go, I'm going to do this. And sometimes you have got to put yourself out there to make it happen.
Have you ever done that? I don't know. I think we have.
Probably. I have. I've literally asked people on Instagram, but they've never replied.
Do you know? And but saying that, Instagram is the worst one for it, because if you're not following them and they're following you,
you don't see it.
It goes
in the request true.
No, you don't see it. So most of mine came through LinkedIn.
Yeah, we don't use LinkedIn at all.
No, do you know what? So many people don't. So many people
do you
don't
find
use
it
LinkedIn.
Useful?
I do. Yeah. Oh, our private investors will have come from LinkedIn.
I've heard from when you're trying to find private investors, that's a great place to look for them, especially in property. But because we've not been searching for private investors through like anyone outside of circles that we know. We've not had to use it yet. So that's a really good tip.
Yeah, definitely. But you know, the more I've used LinkedIn, and also the more connections I've made, just to be able to ask people and sort of say, look, I've been watching what you're doing, I think you're phenomenal. You know, and that's all through social media. So if they weren't putting themselves out there on social media, I wouldn't know they exist to have asked. If I hadn't put myself out there by asking them, we wouldn't have become connected. So yeah, it's been great. Yeah, for me, it's been great.
We might have to look to LinkedIn now.
We've never had jobs, so it's not like we ever needed it.
No. Well, it's interesting you say that, because when I was in agency, I never used it. I never used it, you know. I might look up a contact or somebody who was coming for an interview. I might look them up to check their CVs.
That's what I always thought LinkedIn was for.
I think it used to be back in the day, but for me now, making connections in the industry, in business, in the area, it's been great.
It's more for like local business connections.
Yeah, for me, definitely anyway. Yeah.
Well, we're now going to be
LinkedIn.
There you go.
Another social media platform to understand.
Just what you need, yeah.
Well, we tried TikTok and we were a bit like, I don't understand.
No, I don't think TikTok's not for me.
No.
And I know a lot of people do a lot of stuff on Facebook. I don't get it. I try and I just don't understand. My Instagram actually links to my Facebook. So if anybody listens to this and thinks, well, I've seen you on Facebook. I've never posted anything on Facebook in my life.
It wasn't me.
No,
it was the automated robots.
It was
did it.
Instagram.
Okay, what were the most challenging parts of the HMO of building an HMO portfolio, or any aspect of going down the HMO route?
So I think is the mental resilience, without a doubt. So you can run all your numbers and convince yourself that you're going to get this much a room and you're going to get this much on a commercial finance, and that's all great when you start. And then I think you ladies might have heard me talk before about Gordon, and Gordon's the little man who sits on my shoulder and says, you can't do that, not you. And then it's all great. And I'll go in all guns blazing, and we've done all our figures and I'm happy. And then Gordon will start and Gordon will say, you're not going to get that much a room. You're not going to make that much money, or no one's going to want to live there, or, it's going to get downvalued on commercial finance because there's so much to it. So we've got a small buy-to-let portfolio, and we would buy a 2-bedroom property, put a new kitchen in, put a new bathroom in, and you're going to get, I don't know, £1,200 a month. They're all cookie cutters. They all look the same. You all get the same. Whereas with a lot of the HMOs, that's not the case. So for me, it's definitely been finding the right properties in the beginning and then holding strong. If you've done your research, you've run your numbers, you have to get rid of Gordon, tell him to do one. Being confident that you know what you're going to do. And whenever we do our numbers, we do them all on like worst case scenario. So as long as it's going to work on worst case, and we've done that and we've run those numbers, just stick with it.
Yeah.
So yeah.
That's really important in investing. Do not ever use the best case scenario ever.
No. Go with the most pessimistic figures every time. Otherwise, you'll be in for a horrible surprise if things don't go the way you want.
You could easily get a lot of money stuck. Like we have friends who've done it and sort of said, I'm going to get this and this, and you think, I'm not 100% sure you will. If you maybe thought running it on a few scenarios.
Do you have like scenario A, B, C, D? Yeah,
we do. So we run everything on the worst case scenario. Yeah. So then anything is better than that.
It's a bonus.
But obviously, I want to know what every outcome could be, but also with an accountant, you have to know that. There's no way I'm going to be able to just run the numbers and tell him that's what it is, and then we go and buy a house. No way. No way. We do look at every situation, and also your exit strategy. So we bought a house in Downend in Bristol, and our initial aim was to buy it. It had a big side garden and build a house in the garden. But we always knew we only had a 50-50 chance of getting planning. So what was our backup? And our backup on that one was a HMO, where we then built out an extension, which ironically was bigger than the house that we wanted to put on the land and got turned down for. Built that and did it as a HMO. So we want to buy it and build a house, but if that doesn't work, what are we going to do? Because planning's never guaranteed. And then worst case scenario, would we just chop up the land and sell the land, keep the house? Like, what, for us, we try and have at least 2 exit strategies on every single thing, so that if plan A doesn't work, we have got plan B, and we know where we're going with it. Always.
That's really good. We always have a plan A, B, C. At least. As much exit strategies as you can is sensible.
Well, you never know what's going to happen in property, and I was with our mutual friend Charlotte this morning, we were talking about it, and so much of it is based on somebody's decision, just a person.
And they could be having a bad day and they just walk in and give you a random valuation, which isn't what you expected.
Even planning, sometimes that is very subjective, and that's just a person has decided that. And then, sometimes you might go to committee and go to appeal, and that's just people. Again, that's just people making a decision. It's not, these are the hard, fast rules and you can or you can't. It's all subjective. Commercial valuations, or who's gone out on that day, and if they decided they think it's worth this or they think it's worth that, and that's it. So it is very difficult to have one strategy, one exit plan, one set of figures and be, this is it. I think you've really got to be able to flex.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And also the longer that you're in property as well, the more everything changes.
Everything
changes, and you've got to keep staying up to date with the times.
Well, when I started in agency back in 2007, and we didn't have deposit registrations, we didn't have EPCs, we didn't have EICRs, we had hardly anything. We used to joke in the office and sort of say gas and cash. As long as you've got your gas certificate and you've got your deposit and your first month's rent, if something else,
tick boxes,
if something else has gone wrong, even if someone had signed a tenancy agreement wrong or something, you could redo that contract. Now, if you move somebody in with just a gas cert and the cash, you'd be shot. Like, it is so different in that time, and it's changing all of the time.
I remember actually when the holding deposit came in, when somebody's about to move in and they like do a runner at the end, like so close to move in date. I remember thinking way back when, being like, there needs to be some sort of deposit sort of thing that exists so that landlords aren't like left at the last minute with somebody who's not gonna actually move in, because that's just a waste of everyone's time.
Everything.
And then the holding deposit thingy came in. Like it's
yay!
I was like, thank goodness. But it's just weird when you've been in something long enough, you just see all these random little regulations sort of.
And it's funny, every time there's a change in any kind of lettings legislation, it is very, very, it's so catastrophized and especially by the media and things like that. So the tenant fee ban came in Scotland years before it came in England. And when it was coming in England, everybody was like, oh, agency's going to crash. That's it. Loads of people are going to go bust. And I just couldn't get my head around that, because I was thinking, but it's been in Scotland for years and that didn't happen in Scotland. So why do you think that's going to happen? And deposit registrations, it's got to be with a scheme. Oh, wow, no one's going to do that. Well, of course they are, because if they don't, they can't rent. And it seems to be like the drama.
It's just stirred up a lot, isn't it? I feel like the property world's just stirred up a lot. I
think it is. And when you get down to the basics, it's actually not that bad.
No.
As long as you're sensible and, like we say, you do your due diligence and you have a plan, it's really not that bad. It's difficult because you don't know what's going to happen from one day to the next, who's going to have an opinion on this, who's going to change this. But in actual fact, doing property, as long as you're quite resilient, it's not that bad.
Yeah, just get educated.
And that's the thing, isn't it? Get educated and be sensible. Some people will buy something because they've decided that's going to be a great buy because they're going to put 3 houses on there and sell them for £1 million each. But when you sort of speak to them and try and find out what due diligence they've been and what's been sold in the area and what's happened with planning, they're like, well, I don't know, but that's what I'm going to do. And you think, okay.
I feel like there's like a lot of people who get into property and they go for like the flashiest, biggest development thing as like their first thing. And it's like, I know theoretically why you believe that's going to make you a lot of money.
Yeah.
But
you're putting all your eggs into one basket.
It's so risky, especially if you've never done anything like this before. Maybe like start with something
a little bite size,
and then maybe build your way up to that.
And also I think if you're going to follow people on social media and watch them build their portfolios and things like that, it's also to remember they always put out their highlights. And there's a lot of lows, and it's not always as good as it seems. I've heard one woman, I won't mention any names, but I've heard her speak a few times now, and every time she speaks she gives out different numbers. So I think she is selling the dream on Instagram. And when you actually look at her numbers and things, you think, well, they were different there to what they were there, and they're different again on Instagram. So everything's not always, don't always believe everything you see. It's
like
not
take everything with a pinch of salt.
Everything.
I get that people are trying to inspire people, but then the you do need to just bring it back to reality, and just, I think that's why we just started this whole thing, because we just want like a refreshing, honest place where people actually say what they,
and also just to say, like, it doesn't matter where you are, where you started, or how many properties you have, or the fact is that everyone has a common interest, and that's the whole point of this, and there is a similar end goal.
It's financial independence, really, isn't it?
It's financial independence, and for me it was more about the time. I was, like I say, I was 7 months pregnant. We'd been told we couldn't have a family, so we were very lucky to have got pregnant, and I had my daughter and decided, you know what, I don't want to go back working like 50, 60 hours a week for somebody else. If I'm going to do that, I want to do it for myself. And then when my daughter was 7, nearly 8 months old, I found out I was pregnant again. So, which was a definite surprise. So now, I've got 2 toddlers, but actually it's given me the freedom. Don't get me wrong, it is hard. So if anybody, I try and keep it real on Instagram and things like that. It is hard. If you drop them off at nursery and they're screaming, or you can't get a place at nursery, or you've got to take them with you. And it's, when they were both in a little car seat and you can plonk them down and they're all strapped in, it's great. Now you put them in the buggy, they're climbing out. They just, it's hard. It's really hard, and that's kind of my comparison thing. Like, comparison can be the thief of joy. Don't look on Instagram and see a mum who's doing something and think, oh well, it's really easy for her or anything like that. She probably just isn't sharing that someone's been sick in her hair that morning, and someone's refused to eat the snacks, or there's been a massive row over putting your shoes on before you got there. Like it is hard. It is really hard.
I think that's why your Instagram page is very refreshing, because you keep it real.
I do try to. Yeah. I put on there before, one day my kids were at nursery and I was speaking with investors and I was out on site and I was like really getting involved and loving what I was doing. And then the next day, my 2-year-old locked me out with her 1-year-old brother in the house. So, like, it's life's a balance. Like, it is a balance.
Yeah. I think that's the thing. It's like just bringing actual life into like the media, just like, we do this so that we can live life, and this is what life looks like.
Yeah. And for me, I get that sort of time freedom to spend with my children. I do. But on the flip side, they are with me all the time. So I am trying to work and look after my children all of the time. They do go to nursery now on a Monday and a Tuesday, which is a recent thing and is a revelation. But I've got friends who have more like full-time careers, and their children go to nursery, so they get to work freely, but then they don't get to see their children as much. So I think there's a pro and a con to everything. I think they in some ways will think, oh, you're so lucky because you get to spend so much time with your children, but that's very stressful trying to work and have them with me. And then sometimes I might think, well, you're so lucky because you have that freedom to do your job. And I don't think one is any easier or harder than the other. And I think that's why I just to try and keep it real, being a parent is hard. Like, it is hard. No matter how you slice it, it is hard. So trying to get that time freedom, the financial freedom, is definitely something I'm working towards, but it's not easy getting there.
No,
it's not.
How many hours do you think you work now that you have your HMO portfolio?
Do you know, I think I would say I probably work about 30, 35 hours a week, like really work. But it depends what you class as work.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's
especially
the thing.
As an entrepreneur.
And that's the thing, isn't it? Actually sat at a laptop, doing property management, working, yes. But then I'll go on site visits, or I'll get back to tenants on a text, or I might just check the bank. Have the rents come in? And is that working? I don't know. I think as an entrepreneur, you never stop.
No, that's the thing. I was going to say, it's sort of, if you have your own business or your own portfolio and you're managing it, then it's always in the back of your mind.
Always, always. You never stop. But as in physically sat down, doing work. Yeah, it's difficult to quantify it, isn't it? It really is.
But you're going on holiday.
I am.
And you're able to still earn whilst you're
away.
On holiday.
Exactly. And that is the difference. But then that is the flip side of that is I will have my laptop with me. If something goes wrong, I will have to respond to it, that sort of thing. Whereas, previously when I had a job, you could be on a week's annual leave, so there's pros and cons. But honestly, I could do nothing for that week. I could not take my laptop and do nothing, and I would still earn money because we do have residual rents coming in. Obviously, everything wouldn't be as organised, and you'd have to pick up probably some disasters when you got back. But you're right, you could do that if you wanted to.
Yeah. So whilst I know you've got a project going on now.
Yes.
So is most of your time spent doing the project, or is it on managing the tenants?
I would say at the moment it's 50-50. It definitely is 50-50. I never wanted to manage our own properties. I wanted to hand them over to an agent. Like, that was my real sort of thing. I wasn't going to do it. But then when it comes down to it, I will tell you, I am not a control freak. Brett will tell you I am a control freak. And I just think, I know those properties. I've met those tenants. I know the tenants.
And you were the professional in this before.
I was a professional in this before. I project managed the builds. So if something goes wrong, I know who did what. So I didn't want to do it. But it's when it's your own properties, it's very emotive. And sometimes it's easier to do it because it's your own, and sometimes it's harder. So, I would say at the minute it's 50-50. We did have a purchase going on, property management and 2 big builds all alongside of each other. And that was chaos. that was like kids in the day, kids to bed, work at night, and at that point they only went to nursery. Well, only everyone went to nursery on a Monday. So I had Connor with me all the time. My parents are very good. They have the kids sort of once a week. So I did have a bit of time, but that also taught me maybe to just take it a bit slower. Try and not do everything all at once. It all got done, but definitely the stress took its toll. Definitely.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah. That was 2 big conversions. So we had a 3-bed that we were turning into a 7-bed HMO, and we had a 4-bed that we were turning into a 6-bed HMO, and then managing our small portfolio and kids and minimal childcare. That was really tough. Really, that was really tough. I don't think it will get any tougher than that.
Do you think in the future there will be a part of you that goes, okay, I think I'm ready to leverage off someone else taking the load off?
Yeah, I definitely think so. And I think as we grow, that will happen because one person can only do so much, Brett's great. Brett does all of our accounts. He'll run the numbers. He'll go through the potential purchases, the deals and things with me. And Brett is great, but he does work full time. He is an accountant and he loves his corporate career. I love this, but this is not what Brett wants to do. So we are absolutely in it together, and it is our business together. But I would do the majority of the day-to-day stuff, whether that's advertising properties, sometimes viewings, moving tenants in, property management, finding the properties, viewings to purchase properties, project management of the builds, the refinances, that I do all of that. And I really do enjoy it. But you're right. Well, as we grow, I will have to leverage other people. Yeah, definitely. I will. Maybe.
You're learning all you've got all the skills, you'll know everything. So that when you do leverage off other people, you go, nope.
Yeah, and that's the thing. But you're right as well, though. When we go back to surrounding yourself with the right people, at that point, it's going to be like, this is how I want it done.
Exactly.
I want our tenants to feel like they're people, they're living in homes. We work with local contractors. I wouldn't want to go to someone and they just bring in national contractors and things like that. In everything we do, whether it's working with an investor, a tenant, a contractor, we always, we want to try and
support local
and also try and better everybody. So, even our investors, I would rather work with a private investor over any of the big banks or anything like that any day, because they physically get that return in their pocket. It's a person. And for me, that it just feels very different. It does.
It's like everyone gets a piece, which is lovely.
Yeah, without a doubt. And we're all in it to make money. Like, we all are. Like, I'm not going to sit here and say I'll do it for the love. I love it, but I do it to make money. To buy me the time, basically.
I think that it's interesting because people vilify money and earning money, and like there is no shame in saying I want to make money, because money equals time and freedom and.
Oh, without a doubt, and one of our investors, is actually one of the first people we ever worked with. She is retired, and we've worked with her for a few years now, and she knows that each year that interest is coming, and each year the interest comes and she books her holidays for the year. So that's great. Like, for me, I'm like, you invested in us has helped us to grow our business, which means that I can spend time with my family, go on holiday,
and
things
she
like
gets
that.
To go on
and
holiday.
Then she gets to go on holiday, and then the tenants that we've created the homes for, they get to live in better quality homes. Like, it really is. I am here to make money and buy time, but it is also fulfilling if you set it up
It's a domino
correctly.
effect, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I think money just like amplifies who a person is, and money will go stale and it'll go into bad places.
Yeah.
And then it will
We always
come
say
back
money
round.
flows. You should let money flow.
Yeah.
And if it's flowing in a positive way, you're just going to impact everyone around you.
And
more
you've given a really
positively.
great example.
Yeah.
of that.
It all goes. It's all cyclical, all of it, you know, and I love it. And when we pay back our investors, we have had a couple
God, that must feel so nice.
This is the thing, right? So when
Yeah.
I'm like building up, I'm like, oh, hi, we're here to pay you back. And, you know, we have never not paid an investor, but all of our investors we've managed to pay early. And most of our investors we've retained. You know, we had one person who wanted their capital back, but we always knew that. They only ever wanted to invest for 12 months because they then wanted to go on and buy something themselves. Great. You know, in that time they did their research. Instead of keeping their money in the bank, we then made them extra money. They went on and bought something. They could see what we were doing because we send quarterly newsletters, which then help with their education a little bit. And that in itself is really fulfilling, you know, to be able to do that. So
it really is a people business.
It is without people, this would be nothing. But, you know, you only create the houses for homes. So you need the people to live in them. You need the people to buy them. You need the people to sell them, the people to rent them. Yes, this is all about people. It is a people business. Definitely.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. I think we struggled before when it was like, I think the media was just vilifying landlords for a bit. And for a bit. And
forever.
And I was reading a book. I can't remember what the book was, but it's similar to the book that I'm reading now called What You're For. And it's recognizing that the service or the thing that you're doing for community or society is providing a roof over someone's head is invaluable. Like that is such a huge thing to give to somebody. Yeah. So money is just coming to you because relative to the value that you're providing somebody. Yeah. And it's okay to be accepting of that.
Yeah. Yeah. So somebody, I can't remember who said it to me once, but they said to me, when somebody comes to you, no matter what it's about, you've got to just think to yourself, how can I help you? But genuinely think, how can you help that person? So whether it's an investor or a tenant or whatever. Now for me, if someone is an investor with me, I get something out of that. Of course I do. I grow my portfolio. I make income, you know, which then turns into profits. So of course I do. But how can I help you? And in every single transaction, how can you help that person? And if you really keep that in mind, people are going to want to work with you over and over again because it's not just all about you.
Exactly. Yeah. That's so true.
Yeah, I love it. I do love what I do now. I am, for me, living the life I wanted to always live. Yeah. Aww. It's hard work. Aww. It's very hard work.
But nothing.
That's so cute because before you were like, I want to be a builder, but you probably just had this vision of future you in your head. And she came about in a totally
different way.
Not even that totally different. It was like the same thing, just in on an HMO path as opposed to like. This is the thing, and you are a builder building houses.
This is the thing, and I would have been shit as a physical builder, like awful. Like I can't even do like the stacking blocks with Erin. I'm like, oh. Mummy's had enough. Like, you know, I'd be awful. But yeah, designing it, project managing it, keeping control of it, and then the end sort of product. Yeah, I love it. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. I don't think I envisioned this. No, I don't know. Maybe you're the only girl who was like, I see myself being in property. I don't know, it just seems really niche. I mean, most kids are like a doctor or a lawyer. I should know builders do come, but maybe not so much for girls.
No, and that's the thing, isn't it? And, you know, it was like I wanted to be in property, and that's how I went into lettings and things like that. And then doing that opened my eyes to seeing the landlords and what they were doing. And it's just evolved more and more. I don't know, who knows? Maybe I'll retrain and I'll become a builder, you know? Maybe.
So you can build our houses.
Yeah, no, you don't. Trust me, you don't want that.
It'll be a wonky, will it?
Yeah. Well, I know the top half fell down, no?
Okay. Do you want to ask as well about your experience with bridging? Because we've not personally used bridging ourselves. Okay. So we do want to ask you your how was the process for you, and how did you find it?
So bridging is expensive. Like there's no way around it. And if you speak to people who haven't used bridging, but know a little bit about it, they're going to say, oh, I wouldn't do that. That's great. You don't have to do that because I am, you know, and people are very quick to give you their opinion and very quick to be, you know, that's a bad idea sort of thing. But if you find the deals where you know there's enough margin in it and you know how much the bridging's going to cost, if without the bridging you can't do that deal, then it's worth to take it. So we have spent a lot of money, and we've worked with big commercial lenders in bridging, and we've also worked with private lenders, and you get different pros and cons from both. So with the big commercial lenders, the rates will be a lot cheaper. The fees will be a lot cheaper, still expensive, but a lot cheaper. Whereas with the private ones, it's a lot quicker. So the rates will be more expensive, but there's not as much red tape. If there's a problem, they'll be happy to flex and work with you because they're a lot more practical and it's their money. So it is expensive. But if you can't do that deal without it, I would rather have, say, 50% of something than 100% of nothing. So it's better to take the bridging and pay the fees and do it than not. But that's where your due diligence comes in, and making sure you've got an exit plan, making sure you know how you're going to pay it back, making sure you know how long your works are going to go, because you do not want to run over on a bridging timescale, because that will then start just eating away all of your profits, everything, and making it unviable. So for us, it's been great. It's without a doubt helped us to get us where we are today. But you have to do your due diligence. I can see how people would get into a hole if they were just to take it and not really know how that build's gonna come off, or don't project manage your build enough to make sure it's on time and to make sure it happens. You have to be on it. You have to be. Yeah.
Because I think there is a lot online saying, oh, you got to just do property with a bridging, but there are so many ways that you can find the money to be able to do it, that you don't have to go that route. And that was a really good point of, if you can't what was the point that you said?
If you can't get a deal
then don't either have 50% of it or 100% of it, and which would you rather?
And that's the thing, if you can't do it without bridging, then you might have to do that. And for us, it wasn't even that we had to do it, it worked best. It worked best for us to be able to do that, to get 1 and 2 projects rolling at the same time. Otherwise we could have put everything we had into just one, which is fine, but we wouldn't have then been able to scale on the way that we could. And because we did the due diligence and we ran our numbers, we knew there was enough profit in there to be able to still pay back the bridging. And then our residual income now is higher than it would have been if we hadn't have taken the bridging. And you have to know it's going to work, but you have to be on it. You can't take a bridge and your contractor hasn't turned up, and
you need to make sure,
he's a nice guy, so I'll give him another, because that every day is interest, every week is interest, every month, and the closer you get to running over on that bridge, the more penalties you have, and also your reputation, etc. We want to be renowned for doing what we say we're going to do, and if we take a bridge, to have it paid back early, not even on time, but early. The same with our investors, we always aim to pay them early. I just think a lot of it is about your integrity as well. Taking it, and if you've got no real intentions of being on it and getting it sorted as quickly as you say you are, you're only going to end up in a hole,
because word can get around quite quickly and just ruin your chances of further finance again.
Without a doubt. We would never ever not pay back an investor, because social media is very quick to get things around. In property, everybody knows everybody, as we know. By the time we came to actually physically meet in person, we realized we know people, we've been following each other. So I think a lot of people don't have that integrity, but they also don't have a lot of longevity in the industry.
I'd agree with that as well. If you don't have that integrity, you're not going to last very long.
No.
I have a question, actually. So bridging versus private finance, they come with different headaches, or different, not headaches, but different pressures. Or how would you compare them? Is there a preference as well?
I would always rather work with individuals, private individuals, because as we said, they will personally go and do something with that money. Whereas if you were to use a big commercial brick, it just goes into the wheels, it goes into the cogs. To an extent, you'll be feeding a load of the fat cats at the top. We would always rather take in private investment and pay it back to an individual than deal with any big organisation or anything like that. But we've done both, we do both, and we will continue to do both. So it's what works best for the deals, what is quickest, what's available at the time. You've got both options, but I definitely would always I'd prefer to work with a private individual.
And these people, are they personal, like people in your existing personal network? Are they mostly from that, or how many do you get that are outside of your friends and family network?
So 2 of our investors contacted me via social media, via LinkedIn.
LinkedIn.
But they are people that I already knew.
Yeah.
And we did have one man contact me on LinkedIn, and he wanted to make a significant investment in our business as a private investor, which could have enabled us to go on and do 1 or 2 additional deals in the year, which sounds fantastic. However, we also run anti-money laundering checks. We want to know where the money's come from. We want to know who that individual is, how it got to them, etc. And whilst trying to run these checks, he became very, very elusive. And that is a reminder for me that you have to be very careful who you work with. So you could have strangers, and I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but then that's where you have to make sure you run all of your checks and make sure you are comfortable with the people that you're working with. Definitely. There's a big difference, if somebody contacted you and said, I want to invest 100 grand, and you just took that and ran with it.
I think it's easy it's easy to get excited about it. If someone's like, I got like $250,000, I'd love to put it in what you're doing. It's still like a total stranger, and it's like getting married to somebody for a period of time.
Yeah, it absolutely. Do you know what? It absolutely is. And, if this person is just a face on a social media platform, and you don't know who they are, and they don't want to tell you where their money's come from, and, it's a substantial amount of money, personally, I wouldn't want to be working with those people.
No.
So it's easier to work with people that you already know.
It's easier to work with people you already know, or people, I think if somebody's genuine, why wouldn't they want to show you that it's come from a remortgage or an inheritance, or unfortunately something like a separation or something like that. If somebody's genuine and they've genuinely got this money, I don't understand why you wouldn't want to and be able to show that paper trail of where it came from. And if somebody doesn't want to do that, or they don't want to answer your questions, or they're very negative, or they want to be so involved with what you're doing that it's having a negative impact, that for me just brings real alarm bells. Yeah, definitely.
So I think that's a warning.
That is definitely a warning.
If somebody just says, yes, here's a load of money, be cautious.
But I won't tell you where it came from, or anything to do with that, or give you my ID or proof of address then.
Because angel investor is like a term that people really like the sound of, but there's a lot of caution to be had with just finding any angel investor.
It's often as well easier to do it with friends or family, because you trust them, but they trust you. So we do ask for information. We are going to ask for your ID. We are going to ask for proof of where the money came from. We are going to ask for proof of your address. We're going to do full anti-money laundering checks. We're registered with the AML, so we're going to do that. So if you aren't comfortable giving that to, I might be a perfect stranger to you, so you might not be comfortable giving it to me. That's okay, but we still have to, and we'll do that. So it is easier to work with people.
Family and friends. Yeah, I think that's we've worked with family and friends, and I think people think, when you find investors, like it's usually some random Joe on the street, and it's not. It's usually someone you already know.
When it has been someone random, we found that to be problematic.
Like we have heard of people who've met angel investors at networking events, but if you're not able to build, you need to build that an actual relationship. Don't just go, yes, now we're in it together, because you don't know their background. I think take time to wine and dine and
court each other a little bit.
Well, but you're right. I mean, I'm still waiting for someone to come and wine and dine me, but no, I don't disagree with you. I think you've got to know who you're dealing with from both sides.
Yeah, definitely.
The mama questions.
I asked mama questions.
You did ask mama questions.
Is there any advice that you would give to anyone starting off in wanting to get into property like you did not that long ago, and you've built such an amazing portfolio? Is there any advice that you'd give to someone starting out?
I would say be ballsy. As in, go and ask those questions. If you see someone and you think, I really admire what they do, go and make contact with them. Like I said, the worst thing they're going to do is not respond. I can't imagine that anybody would ever be rude to you. I can't. If they do, then they're not the person you think they are. If you admire them from afar and they're rude, then they're not. So I'd say be ballsy, but also like we've been saying throughout this whole thing is do your due diligence, whether that's on an investor, on a mortgage deal, on the property, on your exit, anything. Don't just jump into something. Make sure you've got a plan. What is it they say, analysis paralysis? Don't go too crazy. I'm not saying look at something for 3 months and then it's sold and you can't do the deal, but make sure, sit down and take some proper decent time to analyze what it is that you're trying to do, why you're trying to do it. Even with an investor taking money, do your checks, just be as thorough as you can. I think is it the 70-30 rule? You make sure you are comfortable with 70% and the other 30% will come together. Don't you will never get anything 100% perfect, never. Like you won't, but be ballsy and definitely do your due diligence. Definitely.
So the numbers always speak, and flick Gordon away if he's being naughty.
Get rid of Gordon. Do one.
Oh, thanks so much, Ellie. If you want to ask Ellie any questions, are you open to?
I don't
want to like say things you're not like comfortable with.
No, if anybody wants to ask me any questions, the worst I'm going to do is ignore you, right?
Exactly.
It's difficult on Instagram because sometimes the messages don't come through. They go into requests and I might not see them. But just send me a message, and if I can get back to you, I'll get back to you. People have helped me along the way, so definitely.
And where can they reach you?
So LinkedIn, Ellie Donaghy, or Ellie's Property Mission on Instagram.
Yeah. And we'll put all her details below
in the bio or the description, whether it's on YouTube or
on Spotify or wherever you listen to your podcast.
It will be there. We'll put Ellie's handle there. Yeah. Thanks so much.
No, thank you. Thank you. Hopefully we got it this time. Yeah.